My friends, I invite you to think about the crosses that you bear these days. What are the things that trouble you, that burden you at this time in your life? Maybe, for example, it's some relationships with family or relatives or co-workers. Maybe it's some issue with your health. Perhaps you're going through some financial struggles these days. Maybe you're going through some emotional pain. Whatever it might be, get in touch with that, the cross that you're bearing these days, and present it to the Lord today in this Mass that we're praying together. I got a little story that I'd like to share with you about crosses. There was this guy named Mikey, and Mikey was having a tough time. He was at the end of his rope, and so he dropped down to his knees in prayer. He said, "Lord, I can't go on. The cross that I'm carrying is just too heavy for me. Do something about it." And God responded to Mikey's prayer. He said, "Mikey, I'm going to do something about this." And he took Mikey to see a door to a room. And the Lord opened the door, and he said, "Okay, Mikey, if you can't bear the weight of your cross these days, then just set it inside this room here." So Mikey did what he said. And then the Lord said to Mikey, "Go right over there now and open up that other door and pick out any other cross that you want from what you find inside that other door." So Mikey was filled with relief. He says, "Thank you, Lord." And he did what he was told. He left his cross in that one door. Then he goes over to this other door. He opens it up, and he enters this giant room, huge room. And there are tons of crosses in there, every imaginable kind of cross. There were wooden ones, iron ones, golden ones. There were crosses of all sizes. Some that were so large that you couldn't even see the top of the cross. They were so tall. There were crosses made of cloth, made of straw, of stone, of diamonds, all kinds of different crosses. And he's looking at all these crosses in that room, and he spots one tiny little cross over there in the corner. And he says, "Bonus." So he says, "I'd like that one, Lord." And the Lord replies, "Mikey, that's the cross that you just brought in." Let's think about taking up our crosses. Before I came to work here in San Angelo, I was serving as a priest in Austin, Texas. And one day, it was the middle of the day in the fall semester, I was driving around in town and I needed to get some lunch. So I stopped in at a restaurant. It was a local Burger King. And the time when I happened to show up at that restaurant just happened to be lunchtime at a local high school. And so here I am standing in line at the counter, waiting to get to the counter, thinking about what I'm going to order, and I'm just in this sea of high school students who are all waiting to order as well, because I picked just the peak time of traffic to order at that particular Burger King. So as I'm standing there waiting in line, I'm kind of looking around me like you tend to do when you're waiting in line, and I notice one of those high school students has on a blue jean jacket. And on that blue jean jacket, he's got different patches sewn on for different things. And one of the patches was right here on his shoulder. It was a circular patch, and it had that round red circle with the red diagonal bar, which we typically use to mean not this or not that, not allowed, right? Like if you see that symbol with a cigarette, it means no smoking, right? Okay, so it had this circular patch, the red circle and the bar, and in the middle of that circle, guess what was there? A cross. And I thought, wow, that's bizarre. I've never seen such a thing. So it looked like it was trying to symbolically say, no cross. Or maybe it meant no Christianity. Very interesting. And so I decided to figure out what it was. And so I asked the young man, "Excuse me, what does that patch mean right there on your shoulder?" He says, "Oh, it's just a club that I belong to." And he didn't want to talk about it anymore. And so I thought to myself in the silence of my heart, that's no kind of club that I would ever want to belong to. But you know what? In all honesty, sometimes you and I have a kind of a no-cross attitude. Sometimes what we prefer is a sort of Christianity light without the cross. And that was the problem of St. Peter in today's gospel passage that Deacon Freddie just read. Jesus tells his disciples in that passage that he is going to have to suffer greatly and be rejected by the authorities of the people. And he's going to be killed and then rise after 3 days. And Peter's listening to all of that. So he pulls Jesus to the side and he says, "Come on, man, what's the matter with you? What are you talking about?" Peter, of course, thought it was pretty cool to be able to affirm that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah we've been waiting for. Because, he kind of had a glorified notion of what the Messiah would be and what he would do. But Peter didn't want to hear any of the suffering part, or the rejection or the crucifixion part. He liked the idea of Jesus being the Christ, but he didn't like the idea of the cross and passion and suffering. So Jesus hears Peter's objection, so he decides to gather everybody around. He says, "Okay, everybody, listen up. Peter's got this kind of mixed up, but I want all of y'all to hear what I'm about to explain. I want to teach y'all something today that I don't want you to forget. Whoever wishes to come after me and be my disciple must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." All of us who seek to be Christians would do very well to take that message to heart. Sometimes, of course, as we go through life, there are certain things that we know that we need to do, but we don't like doing them. For example, washing the dishes. It's great to have a nice meal together, but who likes to wash the dishes? Not very many people. Or for example, doing our homework. I'm sure a lot of you young people like being at school, being with your friends, not being bored at home all day. But all that homework, that's another story. Or for example, little babies. We love little babies. We like to talk to them and make them laugh and play games with them. But then when it comes time to change that diaper, that's another story. They were always trying to find somebody else to take care of it. None of us likes to deal with the pettiness and the immaturity and the imperfection of some people around us. And when those kind of things are presented to us, the parts of life that we don't like to do, the parts we would rather avoid, there are two different attitudes that we could take toward those parts of life. One attitude that we could take up is whining about it, complaining about it, and resenting it. A different attitude we could take, which is more Christian, is to make the most out of it and to view it as a character-building experience. We can join that little sacrifice with the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross, and we can willingly embrace it. And then when we do it that way, that activity that we initially found was not attractive, not pleasant, it's no longer a drag for us, but rather we find it to be life-giving because we find meaning in it as Christians. So if we go through life with the attitude that Peter had in today's gospel passage, wanting no cross, no sacrifice, then we will probably end up frustrated and miserable. However, if we take on the attitude of Jesus, willingly embracing our crosses with love, then we will discover that those crosses are life-giving for ourselves and for the whole world. And we will discover that those crosses are our path to heaven. Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross every day, and follow me.